About 2 more minutes and then we'll get back together.
I'm worse than one of the kids. I went off on a squirrel.
See, that's what I'm saying.
I think I've only answered 2 questions. Oh
Ooh,
my
look, the
gosh.
chicken.
Okay, yeah, the chicken just got away. Okay.
Yeah, it does.
Oh, well, 16%.
And we end the test by, hitting X?
Yep. So, and I'll point this out too, but the students will need to hit that X to save their place as well. Section 1 says resume test. You're done. Here's reading and math, so if you want to do reading, just click on reading. That's right there. And there's math.
So how do we get out of the diagnostic, let's say it's...
There should be a patch.
I'm only 18 per month.
This is a pain in the thing because you can't keep track of it all. Because I already need to everybody's not keen. That's not
Just
like
hit your back
very.
button.
But that's why I said, yeah, sometimes they have it. sometimes
No,
they
like
don't.
pull the keyboard at the end.
Yes, it will be on the regular desktop.
Oh, there.
Yeah, there it is.
Okay. Well, it told me that thing on it said this was the erased. So that's
Everybody should have a
interesting.
reading or a math. I don't see that you're
That right there.
Yes, everything's.
But yeah. Alrighty. Why don't we go ahead and get back together? If you haven't finished, that's fine. Like I said, you can play around with it on your own. Feel free to use this. That's your login. It's specific to you. So, so what did you notice? What are some things that you need to think through or prepare your students for before they take this assessment? Yeah.
Listen to the directions carefully.
Absolutely. And that video is actually available to you through a different site. I'll show you where that is towards the end here. But you can actually show that beginning video and say, think about that. You know, what are some things that we need to do in order to do our best? We don't want happy clickers. Okay, we need to find our happy place and make sure that we're doing our best. So absolutely listen to all the directions. Yes, ma'am.
The ability to listen to something multiple times before you make a choice. Like you can listen to the thing several times.
Yes.
And even listen to the instructions without questions. You can question
Yes.
it.
Letting them know that that speaker is available to help them and to use it as often as they want. With regard to that, in reading, you will have a speaker icon for the foundational skills through 2nd grade. In math, it is available for all question and answer types through 5th grade. After 5th grade, it does go away.
Oh,
Okay.
so where's the speaker? I didn't get that. So,
You had a higher elementary one probably, so that's why.
so what if you have kids though that need that auditory? What do you?
So that's a good question. So I always defer back to what would you do during the math test.
They are allowed to have the auditory.
So if they don't have it, you could read the question to them. But that would take a little bit more one-on-one. But
With quite a few
But
possibly in
the
class.
purpose of this would be for you to determine, where they are. I mean, it's highly unlikely that you're going to be doing your sped student. I mean, I think the specialist is probably going to test.
So we would probably just forgive maybe.
I'm just
Anybody
thinking
who
the
needs
kids
to
I
have-
have getting
anybody
ready to
who-
come up, how many of them, maybe it's not necessary, but I know personally how many of them would benefit from that reading, that they need it, but I understand what you're saying.
And the other thing is you're trying to.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're fine. I mean, it's a good question. I always get it during this training, and I always defer back to, either what would you do during the state assessment, or what is your district line on that type of thing.
One of the other things that I saw was I have a kindergarten and I was taking the reading test, and it didn't necessarily say you could touch the screen, but it said select the word group. But the word group didn't show up until I touched the screen. So we might need to tell them it's okay to touch
Yeah.
the
Done.
yeah.
But what
Yeah.
this is
Now,
saying is
will
that when you
that
get to
work
like
that
last
way
in
on-
7th grade, it doesn't.
That would be a mouse click.
It would be a mouse
Yeah.
function.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's okay
Yeah.
to
Yep.
try it out.
Kindergarten and 1st grade also have a different login or log on. They won't have a username and password. They'll actually have a class code that will be given to them through their teacher. They then find their name. It'll be first name, first initial.
All that stuff is in the workbook.
It is.
Okay, I have not received that one.
I'll talk to Nancy about getting that out to you
We
guys.
just have not received it.
And it may just be because we're still working on end of the year stuff. So it'll definitely come before the end of June, but you should get it before then. I'll talk to Nancy about getting that out to you.
If it comes to me, I'm very
Okay. Yes, I will. I'll tell Nancy. I'll make sure to put that on my list for tomorrow when I'm home, for sure. Anything else? Anything else that stuck out in your mind about kind of what we need to prepare our kiddos for?
Ooh, check this out. After so many questions, I get a game.
Yes. So there is a brain break. After each domain is assessed, math or reading, there's a little brain break. For the upper grades, it's kind of just some breathing exercises. Just gives them a chance to kind of go, "Phew, okay, I'm ready for the next piece." With the
You
little
can't play it
guys,
on the
little
iPad.
dog, he flies around in a spaceship. I personally enjoy the game. But 15 seconds, it's not real long, but I don't want you to think they're not where they should be if you see that. It also gives you an idea of about how far along they are in the assessment. When we talked about giving breaks, it's a good chance, if that's a second doggy game, tell them to go ahead and log out. We'll get back to it later.
Can't
That
do it
kind of
on the
thing.
iPad though. It's not letting me.
Because you need a space bar, yeah.
And then what about the keyboard? Because some of the questions I had to type an answer in, and like I had to type something times something equals something, and when I click on the first box to type it in, it covers up everything.
Yeah, so you won't have as many of those issues with the lab setting.
Dex.
Yeah,
It's a what?
with the lab setting, because you're not
Okay.
running through
It's a
Puffin.
desktop.
It'll be
Okay.
through the browser, so that won't be an issue. A lot of the issues you're seeing are probably because of the Puffin issue and not so much the iReady issue. All right, so it's just some things. The other thing I heard, of course, was headphones. Every student will need a working pair,
what we
just
used for
because there is a lot of
something
auditory that is built into this. So just some little things to think about as you're going through. Yes?
Is there a separate pause button from the done button?
No. How you would pause is there is a little X in the assessment. Some people saw it, some people didn't. A lot of it has to do with the browser or the Puffin issue. But there is an X. It's a big white X in the left-hand corner or right-hand corner. You click it, and that's where it will pause the assessment for you. And then when you do that, there's actually a button that says Resume Test on there.
Double tap your screen, it'll come up.
So now, is there something, if we do a certain big domain, and then teach a bunch of topics from, is there a test just over that domain we can give?
No, not currently. There is not like domain-specific assessments. It's
Okay.
over all domains and all things within the assessment piece.
Okay.
All right. So just some recommendations. We talked about this before, but I wanted to put this back up. The time requirements for grades 2 and above, and recommending at least 2 sessions per assessment. So 2 for reading, 2 for math is what we recommend. Okay. We talked about what to do there. A couple things to think about. I talked about where you find that completion report on your homepage. There's also a rush alert that you get on your class report. In between the name and the overall scale score, there's a little column. I'll show it to you again. That's where your rush alert will appear for each student. The rush alert, it looks like a stop sign with a hand. Okay. If it is a yellow stop sign, it means it took them less than 15 to 18 seconds to respond to each question. They may have rushed, they may not have taken their time. You might want to consider having them retake. If it is a red rush hand, it means it took them less than 10 to 12 seconds to respond to each question. They probably rushed and may need to think about retaking that assessment. Now, I say that with a caution because, as we know with the younger ones, they don't know what they don't know. And honestly, with the older ones, they know, they just don't do. So a lot of times they just click through to get through things until they get the stuff they do know. So especially, I see it more at the beginning of the year as opposed to as we move throughout the year. But think about it on a case-by-case basis. Just because Chris got a yellow rush hand, did we really need to take up more class time for him to retake that assessment? Because there's another hour of time that we have to find for him to redo it. Or is that really where that student is at? They may be a grade level or 2 below, but maybe they're actually a grade level or 2 below. So take it on a case-by-case basis and really think about the student before you decide that, yes, they definitely need to reassess. Now, if it's a kiddo that's in 6th grade and he shows up at a 1st grade level across the board, and other than wanting to maybe hurt him, say, really? Okay. So when you're bored with 1st grade stuff, don't come crying to me. That might be a case where, yes, you need to retake it, and we need to have a conversation and say, oh, if you're at a 1st grade level, I got some counting cubes for you, those kind of things. So, think about it from that perspective of a student by student basis as opposed to every kid with rush hand has to retake. I just caution.
Does it
Yes.
have to be reset or invalidated for them to retake?
It won't invalidate necessarily. What happens is, and I'll show you where to do this through the assignments tab, but you just you re-give an assessment. What happens is the first test is overridden by the second, but the first test never goes away. So you will always have data that shows it. It's just the new test will replace the new data. Yeah. All right, so we've talked about assessing for success, talked a little bit about doing more with instruction. I want to talk a little bit about integrating that instruction and how that plays in part with the data pieces. Let me make sure to get through everything here. Cheers. There we go. All right, so we've talked about the class report, and right here, this is where the rush alert will show up for your kiddos, right here in this column. In between the name and the overall scale score, you'll get a little stop sign with a hand. Okay, so when we talk about this, we all have our Raquel's. Man, she is hitting it out of the ballpark, above and beyond on everything. We're not too worried about her. We know we have a path for her to go. And then there's Sophia, and Sophia's not quite in the same place. Okay, she's overall really not on grade level. She's struggling at 2 or 3 grade levels below in just about every domain. So what do we do for both of these kiddos? Well, for Sophia specifically, that's where the instruction comes into play. Your online lessons are explicit instruction with guided practice and a quiz at the end. Okay? Basically, I do, we do, you do on your own. The quiz at the end is generally between 5 and 7 questions in length, and it will score it automatically for you so you know how she performed on that quiz when she's done with the information and the material that's in there. Okay? We generally recommend that students get about 45 minutes of online instruction per subject per week. Now, there's obviously going to need to be some thought about how that's going to be fit in. How can we do it? You could do it during center activities. You could do it if you have a lab time or an intervention time. I don't recommend that this 45 minutes happen all at once. That's, again, a lot of time for a student to be sitting and just doing. That's why I usually recommend if you have like rotations or centers. I know you guys have an intervention time that's built into your day. That's a great time where for 15 minutes, I have some kiddos that need the online instruction, and then a timer goes off and I flip-flop those kiddos. And I meet with the kids who are doing the online instruction, and I'll meet them, for another 15 minutes to align with what they were working on or something similar to what they were working on. I would not have them do all 45 minutes in one sitting. That's just crazy talk. And honestly, you're not going to get the best results because they're going to be done with it after about the first lesson anyway. They need a break just like they would on the diagnostic. Okay? But what we've shown is we had some outside research done, and what it basically showed us was those students who are getting at least 45 minutes, those kiddos that need that online instruction, show a 44% growth in reading and a 65% growth in math. Because they're getting the instruction at their level to support their abilities to get them to where we need them to go, which is what they've needed all along. We just haven't had the stuff that we needed to get them there, and now we do. Oh, my computer.
It'll come back. It always does. You turn your back and it comes back.
Alright. So, you need to plan what that schedule looks like. If I'm going to do it during center rotations, what is that going to look like? How am I going to do it? Not all kids are going to have that access. So what else is available? Those type of things. One thing I can suggest as well, we have 2 free apps, one for reading, one for math, that are absolutely free that you can download if kids have iPads that can be used during a center activity or independent instructional time. I'll show those to you, but it's Door 24 Plus is math, and there's a reading vocabulary one as well. I'll show them to you when we get to that point, but both of those are available and they're absolutely free. So that's something else for those kiddos that don't have online instruction. They could be doing those. And they can log on as an iReady user or not. It's totally up to them. I will say my girls absolutely love it at home. They play it all the time. And it's really helped with their math fluency and fact fluency. So, all right. So one thing we've talked about is how do we monitor progress in iReady? You have your diagnostic that happens 3 times a year, okay? Usually about every 12 to 18 weeks. Assesses those sub-skills, gives you the updated reports, those kind of things. In between those, you'll have what's called growth monitoring. If you have that set up, your administrator can set it up to automatically happen once a month. It's going to give you that temperature checkup. Are they making growth or not? Okay. Your growth monitoring looks and acts just like a diagnostic. It is very adaptive and similar to the diagnostic. The difference is it will start where the diagnostic leaves off. So if you have a student who's in 4th grade at a 3rd grade level, the first question they'll see is a 3rd grade question, and it will adapt up and down from there. It's only about 20 minutes, about 15 questions. It's not as long as a diagnostic, and it's not meant to be as long, okay? It's not going to change any of this data. All it's simply doing is saying, is that student making growth towards grade level progress or not? Because if they're not, I'm going to make a change in the plan.
So our second diagnostic won't go off of the January growth. It'll start from the first diagnostic.
Right. This is affected by that.
Okay.
Yes.
So we'll be able to, of course, show our diagnostic or benchmarks, and then also the data marks from those monitoring.
Yes. There's a growth monitoring report in your class report that will show each one of those. Yeah. There's a graph after 3 data points. You'll get a graph that'll show where they projected to end and all that stuff. We'll go over more of the growth monitoring when I come back for understanding data, because you won't get enough data points before then anyway. So, yeah. And then in between each growth monitoring, then on a daily and weekly for the kiddos that have the online instruction, you also get a response to instruction report that allows you to know, are they making progress? Are they failing lessons? If they are, what lessons and what can I do for intervention around those lesson pieces? Okay. So you get more timely, ready data at your fingertips than you probably had before, because you're getting more regular data on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. Because you're always looking at that data and it's changing based on where your kiddos are and the progress they're making in your class based on this information.
And Chris, we can set our own diagnostic points.
Yes, you can set your own windows and then you
Ours will
can.
be April, and then we might want to do December.
Yeah, so I was thinking if you give it in August, 12 to 18 weeks, you're looking into November, right? You know, beginning December sometime. If you want to do it before winter break, that probably isn't a bad idea. And then usually some folks, it really depends on your schedule. Some like to do it before MAP, some like to do it after. It just really depends on your level of comfort. You know, if you think you'll get better results in March as opposed to May, it really depends on when you want to give that 3rd one. What I can say is a lot of times people like to wait until May because that really gives them an end of year that they can use to place kids for next year in grade levels, but that's totally up to you how you want to do that.
And we'll have the growth monitors in between.
Right, correct.
So those are.
Yeah, and I mean, if you gave it in April, May really doesn't make much of a difference. It just depends on when you want to
Well,
do
we
that.
wouldn't want to.
Because April is map season.
Double up with the map season.
Right, right. So yeah, and those are the conversations that you kind of, what do we want to do? And if you set them now and want to change them later, that's not a big deal either. That doesn't affect anything. You know, if you want to wait until we have our conversation in September with admin, you can do that too. You know, just make sure you have at least the first window done and ready to go. All right. So a couple things to think about. I want to talk about iReady Central real quick. I'll actually go live in this in just a moment, but iReady Central is kind of a store warehouse for everything iReady. Anything and everything you want to know about iReady is in iReady Central. You would choose I'm a teacher from the drop down, and then you have additional resources for diagnostic, for setup and planning. We even have a section in there about other educators throughout the country that are using it, have used it for years, and here are some tricks and tips that they use that work really well. You'll also find additional resources as well as like certificates for the students who did the best on the diagnostic, or the most growth from diagnostic 1 to diagnostic 2, or in between lessons, whatever it might be. All different kinds of things and ideas as you're moving forward and thinking about what else do we need to think about as we're moving forward is a new district and using iReady. Let me go live real quick with this. So you can find iReady Central through your login. It's at the very top. I can go back actually. I'll show you. So it's right up here. It's that little, looks like a little file cabinet. You just click on it and it'll take you right here. You have 3 different views, so those who are building or district admin, you can look at different reports based on what you're looking for as well. I'm going to just stay here. Under the instructional piece, there's just all different kinds of things that will help you with understanding what's available. There's actually, go back here real quick, for the diagnostic, there are some additional resources and videos, certificate for outstanding growth, work pages for diagnostic if you want those. Preparing students, there's a quick video on preparing the students. Sample of the brain break to introduce the kiddos to that so they're not like, what is this? Those different types of things that are available to you as well. So this is just a store warehouse of everything iReady, just to kind of get you prepared and get the kiddos prepared. There's also sample test items, so you can say, here's a speaker icon, use this. One thing I can say about the math assessment, the only thing that they need is paper and pencil. Everything else will be provided within the assessment for them. So if they need a calculator, if they need a ruler, if they need counting cubes or chips or whatever, all of that is given to them. I even think like protractors and those kind of things to measure angles are in there. It's really preparing them for that end of year online assessment as well, with the digital tools and the drop down menus and creating different things and what have you. All of that's built in for them to prepare them better. So that's why having some of these things are good to know that they are available and that they are there at your fingertips as well. And you can just get to that through iReadyCentral.com and look at those different pieces and parts as well. I wanted to address one thing that I just remembered before I get too far out of the assignments. Somebody asked about, sorry. Some of the lessons are iPad compatible, not all of them. Most of the K2 should be on board by August, but I caution that because that may change, but I want to show you. If a lesson is iPad compatible, it will look like this. It will have this little symbol when you're looking at the student's lesson path. Okay? All of the close reading lessons are iPad compatible. All right, I do know that for a fact. Close reading is available again grades 2 through 5 right now. Okay? But they are iPad compatible, so you could look at any of those and display any of those, or they could do any of those on an iPad. Okay? For the students who have that access. If you ever wanted to show a lesson to your whole class, if you go into the actual lesson name, let me go back real quick. You would just click on the lesson name itself, and then right here where it says view, if you just click on it, it will play. So you could show some of these lessons to your whole group, or even to a small group, because you have access to the lessons as a teacher. So it is one way to kind of utilize the program a little bit more. If there's a really hard concept, especially like in geometry or measurement and data that, you know, maybe a visual cue would be helpful, you could use these as some of those pieces as well. Okay. But I did want to show you that symbol. Couple other things. Oh, actually, let me go back real quick. Couple things I want to show about the lesson path. You'll notice it is leveled for that student. This is how that student performed on the diagnostic. So these are the lesson levels. So it is tailored based on how the student performed on the diagnostic. This is a 3rd grade student, but she's below level in quite a few things. So it is leveled based on that. She's getting some phonics lessons, high frequency word lessons, phonological awareness lessons, all based on how she performed on the diagnostic. They will always have 20 lessons available to them at any one time. Once they start lesson 1, another one will come in at lesson 20. unless they're in 8th grade and they've gone above that level. Then it will automatically stop.
What does the, I know you're gonna cover this later, what does the student interface look like?
It looks just like what it looked like when you logged into the diagnostic.
Okay.
So they'll see a box, when they log in, they'll see a box that'll say just reading, whatever the name of the lesson is, diphthongs level 1, whatever it might be. For reading, they'll have that. If you have created an extra lesson, we'll talk about extra lessons when I come back for the data day, but you could create extra lessons, that would show up right next to it. And then the close reading are actually a separate queue, so those would also be available to them in those grade levels if they're available. In math, you'll just have math and then extra lessons. There's no differentiation there, okay? But the interface looks very similar to what you've already seen. You'll also notice that these lessons, go into, you notice that all the lessons, here's the grade level expectations, the focus standards for that one lesson, additional common core focus, and then you can view it. You can also get an objective and about how long it should take them. All this information is available through that lesson plan tab. So if a kid is struggling and they failed a lesson or something like that, you can go in and look at the lesson and see what they were working on so that you can assist them in small group to make sense of that lesson as well.
And how'd you get to that lesson plan tab again?
Through the assignments tab. So when you log in, if you go to assignments, and then it's the third one over, it says lesson plans. And then you'll just find the student's name and you can pull up their lesson plans. They will not see this. They will never see this view. They only see the lesson they're working on at any one time. Since you asked, we go real quick to show you. So this is what the student page would look like when they log in. So they have start lesson, the name of the lesson. If you created an extra lesson, it would be there as well. And if they click on the My Progress right up here, that's what it would look like. So they can see all the lessons they've taken, whether they passed or failed them, and then that piece over there. Okay.
Does our login let us play with that too? Or does that just take us to a diagnostic?
It will once you've completed the diagnostic.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to finish one part of the diagnostic before it'll let you get to that point. One thing I do want to talk about real quick, because I know we're running short on time. I've talked about passing and failing lessons. Your pass-fail threshold is automatically set at 70%. Now I know that sounds a little low, but keep in mind, remember I said there's only about 5 to 7 questions per quiz. So if they miss one question, they're already in fear of failing that lesson. So I would not suggest changing that threshold, because you need to at least let them miss one. You got to give them a chance. But if they fail a lesson, they will get that exact same lesson again. If they fail the lesson twice, in your home screen, there's a section in the bottom middle that said which students are struggling with online instruction. Their name will show up in that piece. They'll have a little yellow caution symbol. It's a triangle with an exclamation point. Basically means, hey, Chris has failed a lesson twice. He's in fear of having a domain shut off. You need to check and see what's going on, what they're working on, whatever it might be. I will continue my lesson path. If I get to another lesson in that same domain, let's say it was vocabulary, okay? I failed that lesson in vocabulary, I get to another vocabulary lesson. If I failed that next lesson twice, that domain shuts off, okay? The reason domain shuts off is we, as a company, as a product, don't want that kid to take 10 vocabulary lessons and fail them all before you have a chance to look at them. And we don't want that kid to experience that much failure at one time. So it's kind of a fail-safe. It's also a fail-safe so that you don't get so far behind. Weeks get busy as we move further along in the school year, and we don't want you to get so far behind that you realize, oh my God, he's failed 10 lessons and I didn't realize it and what's going on and all that stuff. So I recommend personally checking that report at least twice a week if you can, minimum once a week. Because you don't want to get so far behind that you're like, oh my God, I've got 20 kids that are failing 6 lessons or whatever it might be. So do keep that in mind. You are the only one that can turn the domain back on. It does not automatically happen. They cannot turn it on, anything like that. Once you're ready to have that domain turned on, you can do that through your assignments tab. Through your class management at the bottom, it says turn on and off domain. You just click turn on. You find the student in the domain, and it'll turn it on for them.
Can you have more than one teacher in a class so that others can view the things that you need to?
You could if it's assigned that way, and if it's not, that can be changed. Your building admin can change how many people see that view or whatever. Yeah. So as we're kind of wrapping up today, couple things. When your login is available, your administrator will let you know that. I'll get that workbook out to you guys here pretty quickly so you can get that set up. Moving or adding students, these are all done by your administrator through your building admin. Testing windows, things like that. This is me. Please feel free to reach out to me as questions come up, especially as your year begins. Before I come back in September, if you have questions, this is my direct contact. That's kind of one of the purposes for the sign-in sheet, because I don't remember where I am half the time. So, it may take me a minute to think about where I was, but please feel free to reach out to me. I was one of those teachers where I would reach out to people who have trained us, and 3 weeks later they finally go, oh, huh? I won't do that to you, I promise. I'm usually about, at the latest, a 24-hour turnaround if I'm traveling, but usually it's closer to 6 to 10, just depending on my schedule. I will email back if I'm in an airport, I'm in a hotel, it doesn't matter. I will get back to you that day. If I don't have an answer, I will be honest and say, that's a great question, let me find out, and I'll usually get back to you by the end of the week, unless it's a Friday when you email me. So please keep that in mind. I don't want you to feel like you're bothering me, that's why I'm here. I'm only 90 minutes away if I need to come in and answer questions in person as well. And I know we'll probably set up some additional times for me to come in and work with you guys throughout the year as well. So please feel free to reach out to me. There's also technical support. If it's an actual iReady technical issue, email them first, because I'm probably going to refer you there anyway. If it's product purposes, I have no issue helping you with that. But a lot of times if it's technical and you're trying to do something through Puffin or something like that, email them, because I'm going to refer you that direction anyway, because I may not know what the workaround is or how to answer your questions with regard to that. So there's also an 800 number that's included on your training guide. Those are great people. It's a live thing. It's not an automated system. So feel free to reach out to them as well. But any of these folks, we're here to help and support and make sure that this is a successful piece for you guys moving forward.
Okay, what was the free app for reading it? You said the math one, but you did not tell us the reading one.
World's Worst Pet. Sorry, I thought I said it. I apologize. World's Worst Pet. If you look up Door 24, usually they come together because they're both through our company.
Okay.
The math is available in grades 1 through 8. The reading is available in grades 2 through 8. And the reading works on vocabulary and like phonics pieces, like prefixes, suffixes, antonyms, synonyms, those kind of things. All right, and last but not least, if you wouldn't mind, before you leave, taking a very quick survey. I promise 2 or 3 minutes and you'll be done. Just let me know how I did today. I appreciate the feedback so I can grow as well. I want to thank you guys for your time this afternoon. Really appreciate your attention and your questions. Thank you guys so much.